All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for tuning in. This podcast is brought to you by BETONLINE. Thank you so much for being a part of the community here at Pickaxe and Roll with Mile High Sports. Very interesting game that was played last night. Actually, I don't want to lie to people. It was actually very straightforward as a game that the Nuggets played last night. Not the best defensive game that they've ever shown, and they knew that they could win with offense, so they did. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Michael Malone's concerns with the defensive side of things, and just give out some New Year's resolutions for this Nuggets team. I've got 5. If you've got others, then we could talk about those too. But for now, we're going to talk about mine in the third segment. We'll do the defense in the second segment. And we'll talk about last night's game in this next one. Really quickly, though, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by good folks over at BetOnline. They continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting, live in-game betting, the ability to act and watch the games as they happen, large selections of odds on everything from football to NBA, college basketball, and more. Head on over to BetOnline today, and don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Thanks for tuning into the show. Appreciate the love and support. Cedric kicks it off with another super chat. Cedric says, Nuggets top 3. Happy New Year, Ryan. We got a collab. Check the phone. Yeah, I know. I don't necessarily check all the time, but I will get back to you, Cedric. I promise. It's been a very, very busy last couple weeks, but we can do something. We'll try to do something for sure. All right, let's get into it. The Nuggets take down the Hawks. They won this game last night, 139-120. That is a lot of points, and there were a lot of points scored in the first half. It was, I think, 74-71 at halftime. The pace that they were playing at was crazy. And Denver didn't really care to play any defense. They did not care to do the detail stuff at that point. There was a lot of jogging back on the defensive end and transition. The closeouts were pretty poor on the perimeter. And then just like sticking to the pick and roll on screens was not where it needed to be at that point. And yet it didn't matter ultimately because Denver won that game 139-120. Their offense was much better, and they had a different level that they could go to on the defensive end. Now, there are disagreements between like how good that level actually was versus whether it was just the Hawks missing shots from last night's game. Denver outscores Atlanta 65-49 in the second half. And look, I'm not surprised that they were able to do that because the Hawks were missing Jalen Johnson. They were missing Bogdan Bogdanovic, 2 of their important players. But not like, look, I know Matt last night on Locked On was very much of the nature that Jalen Johnson's their best player. It's a massive loss that he's gone. I don't know, man. Like Denver, they were able to put out more 3-point shooters. As a result, the Hawks were, and they couldn't keep up with Denver. And like part of that was because they shot 16 of 46 and not 20 of 46. And that would be a little bit different, of course, if they were to do that. And Denver, I think, deserves a little bit of criticism for not really locking in and stopping those perimeter shots. Then again, the Hawks are 30th in the NBA in 3-point percentage. So is that part of the game plan that you don't have to close out as hard, that you'd rather them taking a 3, especially some of their perimeter guys like Zachary Risachet and Dyson Daniels went 1 of 7, and Vic Krejci was unbelievable in the first half and then normalized in the second half. I think there's a fair debate to be had there. But ultimately, the Nuggets still found a way to get it done. They won comfortably in the end. Nikola Jokic did not have to play in the fourth quarter, which is a great sign. Michael Porter played just 24 minutes. That's a great sign. Christian Braun did play into the fourth quarter, but that was just due to the rotation. Jokic in this one was on pace for a 20-20-20 game. It was very close to happening. If the Nuggets had played in the fourth quarter, it might have happened. 23 points, 17 rebounds, 15 assists, 2 turnovers. How dare he? 8 of 16. How dare he miss 8 shots? And I'm kind of being tongue-in-cheek on that because he did miss some shots that you wouldn't expect him to. There was a stretch during the first half where he missed a couple left-handed like hook shots, left-handed shots around the rim. And then there was after one play and a dead ball right before free throws were being shot, he got a hold of the ball and just was shooting with his left hand over and over and over again before he had to give the ball back up. So he knows that if there is one weakness in his game right now as a scorer, it's probably with that left hand around the basket. So he's got to be better there, and he will be. I have no doubt that he will. But it was still a very, very impressive performance. Some of the passes that he was throwing were insane. He finished really well with his right hand, and then 1 of 1 from 3, 6 of 6 from the line. The jumper is still working great. Like, there's no doubt about that in my mind. But ultimately, like, he's just in a really good place. He's seeing the floor very well. He's locking in when he has to on the defensive end. And the offensive end, like, they're just killing teams right now. They're dominating because what he's just ultimately figuring out is that with Michael Porter at the 4, with Russell Westbrook in there, with Christian Braun in there, you run, you get the ball ahead of the defense as often as possible. And if you don't, then you just cut half to hell. Like, it is pretty easy. It's the pretty easy for sure. And I tend to think that the Nuggets ultimately, like, they're still in a pretty good spot because of what they did. Like, defensive side, I think that the offense is in a really good place right now. And you could see that with pretty much everybody. Russell Westbrook, you gotta give him credit as well. The way that he has handled his stuff, the way that he has upped the pace for the Nuggets and put them into a position where they can get as many good possessions as possible. Jokic gets the ball a whole heck of a lot, in part because Russell Westbrook is feeding him the ball. Russell Westbrook, 16 points, 11 assists, only 2 turnovers himself. And, like, they weren't bad turnovers. They were just, like, sometimes you lose the ball. Sometimes it just gets away from you a little bit. Those aren't that bad. 11 to 2 assist to turnover ratio is pretty good. Plus 24 for him. Jokic was plus 31. Good Lord. Russ continues to find ways to impact the game as a point guard. It's moved Jamal Murray over to shooting guard. And he's staggered it back at point guard with the second unit for sure. But Jamal is now really in a situation where he can just score. He doesn't have to worry about any of the other stuff. Like, he just scores and puts himself into a good position where he can shoot. And the team needs that. The team needs somebody who can score off the dribble. And Jamal provides that too. 21 points, 6 of 14, 2 of 5 from 3, 7 of 7 from the line. The big secret for Jamal's, his scoring right now is that when he gets to the free throw line, he scores 20 points. And as long as he can get to the free throw line, go 7 of 7 from there, he doesn't have to take a whole heck of a lot of shots in order to get to 20. So it's a good place for him to be. The efficiency is really creeping back up there. Had 2 steals and a block yesterday. Continues to make good plays on the defensive end. Christian Braun, I thought his defense was okay for the most part in this one. I think he's still giving effort, but he still has these brain farts where he just kind of forgets where his guy is and then overreacts and is just put behind the play a little bit. But he had 15 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and shot 7 of 9 from the field. The lack of 3-point shooting from him, it happens every game now. I don't know. I'm not going to belabor the point, but 0 of 1 from 3 for your shooting guard or your small forward in this case is not great. It's a good thing that your power forward is 5 of 9. Michael Porter Jr. is one of the best spacing power forwards in the NBA because he's really kind of a 3.5 and it just has that skill set. Michael Porter scores 21 points, 5 of 9 from 3. Pretty good stuff from him. Off the bench, Julian Strawther played 30 minutes. He played into garbage time because he had to. Denver doesn't have another guy that they could go to because Trey Alexander and PJ Hall are both in the G League. But Jalen Pickett got on the floor. Let's talk about Julian Strawther first. 2 steals and a block from him. I honestly thought that Julian's defense yesterday was decent. Like it was pretty solid. And sometimes you're going to lose track of some guys on the perimeter. But I honestly thought that Julian wasn't really the problem last game. I thought he was mostly on track and mostly doing what he needed to do. And he's never going to be perfect, but I saw some plays from him and he's mirroring pretty well. When guys are attacking him, yeah, they might score over him, but like DeAndre Hunter, for example, was taking pull-up 2s over him and not just like getting right to the rim, not just getting right to an open 3 or anything like that. These were difficult shots and DeAndre Hunter's good and he hit those shots, but it wasn't that big of a deal. So I'm not going to make it a big deal. But it was good to see. And Peyton Watson, like he got the Hawks bench mad yesterday. That was pretty funny. Just doing some great things, continuing to play with confidence. I really liked what I saw from him. 2 steals on a block from him as well. Only 1 of 4 from 3. Did hit a 3, and I think it was right in front of the Hawks bench, and then said something to them, and then they got mad. I think Quinn Snyder was like, "Hey, what the hell, man?" Like he said it exactly the way that I just said it. And then DeAndre Jordan had 8 points in the first half. Didn't really do much in the second half, but he did have, I think, a block and just has held down the fort reasonably well for the Nuggets backup center spot over the course of since the beginning of December, I would say. He's been pretty solid. So got to give DeAndre Jordan a lot of credit. And there's a reason why the Nuggets have really stabilized is the formula is intact. Jokic dominates his minutes. DeAndre Jordan, when he's out there and kind of as the backup center, the Nuggets lose those minutes by a little bit. And then lo and behold, you got a 10 to 15 point win for the most part. So it was good. It was good to see. I think it's pretty straightforward how they won. They won with offense. They did not win with defense. And maybe we should talk about that next. When we come back, we're going to talk about the defense. We'll talk about, hey, is it going to ever show back up again? Is it going to be a problem? Are they going to see it? Does it matter? Like, how much does it matter at this stage of the season? We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. And we are back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Yeah, Nuggets get the job done, and they, I think, performed extremely well for what they needed to do. Michael Malone put on a little bit of a show in the post-game presser last night. The Nuggets are 19-13, and they have really stabilized. They have really figured some stuff out. But I don't think he wants to settle for that in particular. And yet, when I look at the standings and I look at where they are, OKC's 27-5. They're not catching them. OKC's on a 12-game win streak right now. They are dominating everybody else. Memphis is 23-11. Houston is 22-11. And then you've got the Nuggets at 4th. Somehow they have crept all the way up to 4th place at 19-13. The Mavericks have lost 3 games in a row because Luka Doncic is out. Kyrie Irving missed a couple games ago with, I think, some rest. And I don't know what kind of pace they're going to be able to maintain if Luka's going to be out. So going to be interesting to see, can Denver kind of maybe get some ground over Dallas at this point? I thought that Dallas was going to far outstrip them in the Western Conference based off of what we saw through the first 30 games. But it does look like Denver has fully stabilized. They are back on track. They're not really in as much danger as they were. Now, what I will say, Denver's got 13 losses. Golden State at the 10 seed has 16 losses. So this is an ongoing problem. This is something that Denver's going to have to they're going to have to continue to work on. This is not over because Denver has just crept up to the 4 seed. They continue to have to work for this to happen, for them to stabilize a little bit. But back to Malone. He effectively said that, look, I'm glad that we're winning. We're winning with offense right now. We cannot just do offense. We cannot just be an offensive-minded team if we want to go anywhere. We need to be a defensive-minded team. He has to say that. It is a requirement for him to say that. I am not saying that he is like, I know that he is actually furious about the defense. That is true. And like, he feels that way because you look at the teams that have been playing in the last 2 weeks on cleaning the glass. Cleveland is first in offense in the last 2 weeks, sixth in defense. OKC's 12th in offense, first in defense. Boston is fourth in offense, fifth in defense. New York is third in offense, ninth in defense. Memphis is fifth in offense, eighth in defense. Houston is sixth in offense, third in defense. Dallas is falling off a little bit. They are 16th in offense in the last 2 weeks, 11th in defense, partially because they're losing Luka Doncic. So of those teams, like pretty much the top 6 are all top 12 in every category, and 5 of the 6 are top 10 in each category. And the Nuggets in the last 2 weeks are second in offense and 27th in defense. But they are 8th. They're 8th in point differential on the season. They're also 8th in point differential in the last 2 weeks. So, like, this is a thing. This is a thing that the Nuggets have to figure out. They can't just survive with the offense. They can't just forego defense for the entire time. But they're in a really tough stretch of games right now because they're playing a ton. They're playing 17 games in the month of January. They just came off of a stretch of 5 games in 7 nights to end December. Because Denver was so, like, they played so few games overall in comparison to the rest of the league through, like, up to up to like December 20th. Because they played so few games, they're making up a whole bunch of games right now. It's going to be really tough. And Mike Malone said as much too. They're going to have to play really hard in order to just stay above water. So anytime, any singular time that they can get a win without giving 100% effort, they should try to do it. They really should. Because we're talking about gassing out in Game 7. We're talking about, hey, do they have enough guys? Jokic is playing 37 minutes a night, and so is Jamal Murray. And like everybody's been worried about Jamal's health and like, can he handle certain burdens? He's playing 37 minutes a night. So I don't know if I really want to hear from Malone that, hey, we really got to lock in on the defensive end. Like really got to be this giant right now on the defensive end. I agree with them that they do have to win a championship. They're going to have to show some level of defense. I don't disagree with that. But I just kind of understand it from watching this team over the course of the last, like the entire era, the entire Michael Malone era, effectively, that without Aaron Gordon, that with the situation that they are in where they have to play the young guys, and the young guys are helping on the defensive end. Christian Brown is providing energy. Peyton Watson is one of their best defensive players. Julian Strawther, he's figuring it out. He's trying, but he's the weak link for sure. With DeAndre Jordan as their backup center, and with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter and Nikola Jokic trying to manage the season because of the minutes that they are playing, I'm just not surprised at all that we're in this stretch where, like, hey, last couple of weeks, the defense has really slipped. Now, Michael Porter said it last night, no, we have to be better defensively. So I'll be watching over the course of these next couple of weeks to see, hey, is the defense actually going to get better? Or is that just kind of talk? Because Michael Malone's talking about it. Christian Brown talked about it last night. Michael Porter talked about it last night. All these guys talk about it. Are they going to be about it? I don't know. Like, we'll see. We will see for sure. I'm curious to see what they actually do. I'm curious to see how they handle themselves and whether this is going to be a thing. They're playing San Antonio in these next couple of games, January 3rd and January 4th, one at home, one on the road. How do they handle the Wemby matchup? How do they match up with everybody else? In theory, if they really want to lock in, they can do pretty well against the Spurs. But Wemby is a different animal. I don't know how they're going to guard him. Aaron Gordon would be the guy to throw on him. You throw Jokic on Wemby, and you're probably not going very far with that defensive matchup. You throw Michael Porter on Wemby, and we'll see what happens. But Wemby is, of course, the center for the San Antonio Spurs. They don't really play another big guy. So given that, there's no real place for Jokic to go. So I'm kind of expecting this to be a pretty tough defensive stretch for Denver heading into the weekend. We'll see whether they can do that. We'll see whether they can turn that around. But I'm not really expecting the defense to bounce back anytime soon. The difference sometimes between other coaches and Michael Malone is Michael Malone is never going to be happy unless the defense can get back on track. There are other coaches out there that are saying, hey, if we have to win with offense right now, so be it. We'll figure out the defense at another time. I'm not sure that Malone is wired that way. I'm not sure if he's willing to go that direction. He believes, in my opinion, that he would be letting the team off the hook if he doesn't talk about the defense. I think it might be more impactful at some point for him to say, hey, look, we're going to win with offense right now. We're going to try on defense. I'm not going to give up on it entirely. But just in terms of saying, I'm not going to berate you over and over and over again like children if we know that we're not going to win with defense right now. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts on that. Like, I don't know if he can really continue to play the card that says defense, 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 because he's got Jokic and he's got Murray and he's got Porter and they don't have Gordon. And obviously they're going to win with offense right now because they've moved Michael Porter to the 4. Like, they're playing 2 point guards at the same time, and they moved Michael Porter to the 4, and they have Nikola Jokic. So, like, I'm just not surprised that this is the way that it's going. And it is not going to be a reflection of me that they're like, can they not win a championship because they're playing bad defense right now? No. They're going to have to play good defense at some point. They're going to have to prove that they can do it. I just don't know if it's this moment in time right now where it needs to happen. So we'll see. We'll see what ultimately happens and whether they can get that defense back on track. If I look at the ongoing schedule for Denver, like, they've got these games against the Spurs. Then they've got Boston coming to town on January 7th. They're probably going to get blitzed in that game. That's probably what's going to happen. Then they've got another home game against the Clippers. They've got a home game against the Nets. Then they go on the road and play Dallas twice on the road. It would be nice if the defense could come back around for those particular matchups. But yeah, I think that over the course of these next 7 games, if you see the defense start to turn around, they're going to play Dallas. They're going to play Houston right after that. They're going on the road to play Miami and Orlando. Then they come home and play Philly and Sacramento. Like, they've got some really tough matchups, of course. Eventually, they'll have to get the defense to go. But right now, at this particular moment, they just have to survive. However they win, doesn't really matter to me. Eventually, they'll get the defense to go, but we'll see. All right. When we come back, we are going to chat about New Year's resolutions for these Denver Nuggets. It's a new year, 2025. How do they handle themselves, and what do they want to see heading into this year? We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. Final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for the new year. Would really, really appreciate it. All right, let's get into it. I wrote down 5 New Year's resolutions for these Denver Nuggets, and it is funny that I'll be directly conflicting with the actual thing that I just said in the first one. But I've got 5 things. If you've got Nuggets resolutions, then drop them in the comments. I'll put them up on screen and we can talk about it too. First one for me, get the defense back on track. It'll happen eventually. They're gonna make it happen eventually. It'll be all right. They're gonna do it, or maybe they won't. And maybe that'll be what prevents them from ultimately being the best version of themselves, where they can only be good on the offensive end and they can't really find that defensive rhythm. But I tend to think that getting the defense back on track will be one of the differences between, okay, are they going to be a championship contender or are they just going to make the playoffs? And we'll find out which is which. Jokic, obviously, we know what he's going to have to do on the defensive end. He's going to have a hard burden on both ends of the floor when the playoffs come around. I don't I'll believe it. Like, he's going to be fine on the defensive end, or at least when I say fine, I mean like he will be average. I don't think he will be the worst defensive player of all time. I don't think he will be a problem on the defensive end. He might not be the solution to what the Nuggets have to do, but I'm worried more about like, what does Murray look like in the playoffs? What does Porter look like in the playoffs? Can Julian Strawther hold up and be a decent offensive spacer if he's not necessarily playing great defense? Can Christian Brown be a shutdown guy as opposed to just a good defender? Aaron Gordon, how does he look physically? Things like that. Those will all contribute to the defensive conversation, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Like, will they find a way to play some good defense, or are they just going to talk about it and not be about it? Next one. Get Aaron Gordon back. Number 2 Nuggets resolution, get Aaron Gordon back and get him healthy. I don't know what that's ultimately going to look like, because I thought that he would be good after 10 games missed early in the season, and then he re-injured the calf. And Michael Malone, speaking pregame about Aaron Gordon's status, said, yeah, I don't think we'll get him back over the next couple games either. There's no timetable for his return. Always want to be cautious with soft tissue injuries. He's saying all of these buzzwords, all of these things that say, yeah, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when he's going to be back and when he's going to be healthy. And that to me says he might be out for a lot longer than I expected. Like, the way that Michael Malone had initially discussed it and described the injury, I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see. Like, I think he could come back a little bit sooner. This isn't as serious as it was before. I tend to disagree with that. Like, now I think, based off of what we're hearing, that messaging has kind of changed. So I don't know when Aaron Gordon's coming back, but a good Nuggets resolution would be that Aaron Gordon comes back and is healthy and is playing well, continues to play well for this team. They need him. They need him as an option, somebody that can help their rebounding, somebody that can give them a small ball 5 option when they need it in the playoffs. He can continue to shoot the ball well like he has. That would be great. But more than anything, you just want somebody that knows how to fit with the Nuggets core and knows what they need to do in order to make the team better. And Aaron Gordon, of course, does that. He knows what to do. So that would be a great thing for Denver to get back. He has had a while to be out. Got hurt on Christmas. It's been a week since then. It may be a couple weeks more. Like, I don't really know what to expect with it, but given that Russell Westbrook is in the lineup as opposed to Peyton Watson, I think that they might think this is kind of a longer-term thing. So the byproduct of this has been Russell Westbrook has really stepped up in this moment, and it's been good for Denver to see Russell Westbrook in this different environment and playing him next to Jokic and playing him next to Murray and figuring some stuff out. But they need their starting power forward back. End of story. Number 3, Get those Jokic and Murray minutes down. Jokic is playing 36.9 minutes per game. Murray's playing 36.7 minutes per game. Any way that they can do it, they got to figure out a way. So Jokic playing 30 minutes or 29-30 in this last game. And then I think Murray played like 32. Oh, no, God. He played 36 in this last game. Ugh. Okay. Look, that is a Michael Malone issue. That is one where, because I know what the minute chart looked like in that one. Murray played 8 minutes in the fourth quarter and then came out at the 4-minute mark. That's just too much. That's yeah. I mean, this should not be hard, and Malone's got to get that under control. If he gets an opportunity to rest him, he has to do so. Like, just end of story. That should have been a time where Jalen Pickett was on the floor, and they should have been playing Pickett, Strother, Tyson, Watson, Jordan. Like, that should be pretty simple. Or maybe they get Dario back out there and play a little bit bigger and do some things like that. Although that doesn't make much sense. They need Murray's minutes down. They need these minutes down. And I know that he's never going to say that. He's always going to be fine. He's like, I want to play. I'm fine. It's not going to help get their defense any better if those guys are having to manage playing heavy minutes throughout an entire game. It's just not. And these minutes are going to add up. So do I think that it's that big of a deal that he's playing 36 versus 32 in a blowout last night? No. But I would have liked to see him play 28. I would have liked to see him not play a single minute in the fourth quarter. That wasn't going to happen. But they got to find a way to get him some breaks, get him some more breaks, because they're playing Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook can play a lot of minutes too. They should absolutely not be playing Murray that much time. Like Pickett, he has proven, I think, over the course of these last few weeks, that he's been good. Yeah, I'm seeing Murray needs to play. He's been out of shape in the comments. I do think that he has played himself into shape over the course of these last couple weeks, or not couple weeks, a couple months. I think he's okay. I think he's in a good spot now. Part of it is just that he's, I don't know. I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but I do think that he is in shape. I do think that he's in a good spot now. Keeping that shape and obviously staying on track with things is, of course, a very big deal. But I think that both Joker and Jamal need to play less. That would be great. And then Joker, of course, that's a big deal because the only games that he's missed so far have been the 3 that he missed for the birth of his son, if I am not mistaken. So any opportunity that he can get to not play in the fourth quarter like last game, that was a big deal. So good on them for making that happen. But yeah, Porter's played 29 out of 32. Michael Porter's played every game. Christian Braun missed 1. Russell Westbrook's played every game. Peyton Watson played every game. Julian Strother's played every game. So they've had a lot of guys that have played a lot of minutes. Murray, I know that it feels like he's missed a lot. He's played 26 out of 32 games. He's only missed 6. That's not that large of a number, especially when he went to the concussion protocol earlier. So we will see. Number 4, what did I have for number 4? Find another front court rotation player. I had power forward / center as the ideal option, but I think that Denver needs another guy in the front court. Without Deron Holmes, I think everybody expected Dario Saric, Zeke Naji, one of those guys to be able to step up in his place. They have not been able to do so. So that has led DeAndre Jordan to play the role that he has played. But you look at the Nuggets rotation, and let's say they get everybody healthy. Let's say they get everybody on track, outside of Deron Holmes, of course. Murray, Christian Braun, Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. That's the 5. You've got Russell Westbrook, who's been great. Julian Strother, who fits. I don't think he's been great, but he's improving. And Peyton Watson. That's 8. And Peyton Watson's like a true small forward, plays the power forward a little bit because he can't shoot as well. Or like that's just the natural position that he gets put into because of Denver's other personnel for sure. If Denver has a bigger player that they can go to, somebody that's more in that Jeff Green role, that's more in the like Dario Saric sized role, maybe a little bit more athletic than Dario, obviously, then I think that they would be okay. I think that they'd be in a pretty good spot. You want somebody that can roll to the rim. You want somebody that can pop. You want somebody that can do a variety of different things. But in my opinion, like that's the really like the only positional thing that they need. Now, what they could use as well is somebody like Justin Holiday, just another defensive wing, somebody that can do the 3-and-D stuff. That would be great. Somebody that, hey, if it doesn't work with Julian, then you can, of course, play somebody else like that. So that's also on my mind. But in just where I think that they could really use that extra body is when they're trying to rotate out a whole bunch of people in the playoffs. I think that Jeff Green spot, that's physical power forward that can switch onto centers, that can play the 4, that can run, do some things, that would really help. I don't think that they need a true center. I don't think that they need that. That wouldn't be my goal for Denver. Jokic is, of course, going to play 40 to 42 playoff minutes every game. In the minutes where he's not out there, you want to switch everything defensively. You want to hunker down. You want Murray to be involved. You want Porter to be involved. But more than anything, you just want to get better defensively. And I think that they can do that without being like this traditional defense. But we'll see. We will see what they ultimately do. I don't really have a name for that list that I just put out there for that power forward or center type player. But that's just the style of player that I think Denver should be looking for. And then number 5, you decide if the championship core is good enough or not. And what I mean by that is Jokic, Murray, Porter, Gordon. That's the championship core. Everything else is sort of secondary. You kind of mix and match different pieces around that. You see, okay, hey, Russell Westbrook works. Hey, Christian Brown's doing pretty well. Hey, Peyton Watson makes sense here. Hey, Julian Strawther makes sense here. Things like that. The championship core is Jokic, Murray, Porter, Gordon. Those are the 4 biggest contracts. That's what they built around the idea of over the course and won the championship in 2023. And I think they need to have that decision or make that decision before the trade deadline this year. Like, is it good enough? And that's why the Zach LaVine stuff for Michael Porter has been mentioned. That's why there are other trades for Michael Porter that have been mentioned. He is, of course, the only tradable piece in that. But I think over the course of these last couple weeks, that chatter has, of course, died down because the Nuggets have started to figure some stuff out. They are in a better position where they're a little bit more stable. They're doing the right things. And the conversation around, hey, the pressure for Denver has died down just a little bit. The pressure's still there. They obviously still want to compete for a championship, but they need to be honest with themselves and ask, okay, we won a championship with this group plus a couple of other defensive wings that are really good. Without those defensive wings, is this group still good enough? Do we expect Murray to get to that level again? Do we expect Aaron Gordon to get to that level again? Michael Porter, how's he going to react to the playoffs this year? Things like that. And Calvin Booth will have to be honest with himself. The Nuggets organization will have to be honest with themselves. And they're going to have to make that decision before the trade deadline this year, because that could really affect what they decide to do. If they do decide, hey, we don't think that we are good enough to be at that level, they'll have to explore some options where they can get better. I don't know if there is an option for them to fully get onto that level, I don't know. We'll have to find out. Patrick Conlon is BSing in the comments right now. Blackburn said last night, and he was talking about Locked On, that Denver won't beat OKC in the playoffs. OKC is in a different tier. I think they are. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. OKC this year is 27-5. They have the best point differential in the entire NBA. They haven't even been healthy. They have Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren and the best perimeter defense you could possibly ask for, and a guard in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that the Nuggets cannot stop. So when you ask me, hey, are they in a different tier? Well, they're certainly in a different tier than the rest of the Western Conference, that's for sure. So yeah, I think it's going to be hard for them to win. So Denver has to be honest with themselves then and say, are they going to be able to compete with that team? Can they beat that team? I believe in Jokic finding a way. I don't know if Murray can find that. I don't know if Porter can find that. I don't know if Aaron Gordon can find that. I don't know if the Nuggets' young wings, which, yeah, they beat OKC in the regular season in like game 8 earlier this year. But I don't know if they can find that either, especially when OKC really hunkers down and says, all right, we're going to lock in on your defensive weaknesses and your offensive strengths, and we are going to make your life hell. So they've got to be honest with themselves and say, can we beat that team? Do we think that we can beat that team? And if the answer is yes, then you go for it. You keep the core, you do what you need to do, you try to add around the edges, and you say, all right, we're going to go to war with this group. And if the answer is not, then maybe that changes your perspective. But I think it's important for the Nuggets to be honest with themselves about that, as every organization has to. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. I'm looking forward to seeing what this year brings for the Nuggets. I think that we're in for a treat. I think that we're going to be surprised by what they can ultimately do. It's going to be very interesting. That's going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, folks. Appreciate the love and support on the podcast. As always, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed. If you didn't, if you think that, like Pat Conlon says in the comments, that Blackburn is an OKC slurper, then just leave. Just go away. You don't have to watch. I don't need you here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Of course, hit that like button if on the way out if you enjoyed. I will talk to you guys very soon.